Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to share with you my ovulation test line progression video. So showing you my ovulation tests from this past month. If you are trying for a baby or just trying to get to know your body a little bit better, ovulation tests and kind of waiting to get a positive one can be a pretty confusing time, and so I know that these videos helped me out a lot when I was first getting to know my cycle and what a positive ovulation test looked like. So I hope this helps you as well. Before we jump in, let me just say that the tests that I used are these easy at home tests. These are very inexpensive. I will link them down below. They're from Amazon. They are my tried and true stick tests. I've used them for both of my boys. In case you're new here, I have a 3.5-year-old toddler and a 1-year-old baby. And for both of them, when I was testing for ovulation and for pregnancy, I use these. You might actually hear my baby right now. I put him down for a nap just now and he's kind of babbling along in the crib. But I use these stick tests. I use these stick tests to test for ovulation, the blue ones, and for pregnancy, the pink ones. These are a really great option. This is not sponsored or anything, but these are a really great option to use if you are testing for ovulation, because you're going to want to look at testing multiple times a day, and obviously for many days in a row if you're not quite sure when you're ovulating and if you really want to catch your LH surge. So you don't want to spend a whole bunch of money on expensive ovulation tests. So again, this is not sponsored. I just wanted to share these because they're inexpensive and because I've never had any issues with them. They work really, really well. So I'm going to flip the camera around. I will show you the test line progressions or the test line progression, is that the right way to say it? And we can kind of talk about it and talk a little bit more about ovulation and when I ovulated and stuff. All right, friends, so here is the line progression. So just right off the bat, CD stands for cycle day. So starting at the top, I taped obviously one ovulation test per line on this piece of paper. Next to it, I wrote cycle day, CD, and then the cycle day. So your cycle day 1 is the very first day of your period. You can't ovulate on the first day of your period, right? Because your uterine line is shedding. Cycle day 7, I was still spotting. So obviously I wasn't going to ovulate on that day, but I wanted to start testing there. So I had something to compare to. When you are testing for ovulation, the test line, which is the line on the left, has to be as dark as your control line, if not darker, and that will signify that you are having an LH surge and going to ovulate in 24 to 48 hours. So that's the key here. That's why you have to test so many times and take so many tests, is because you want to catch that dark line. So I've read a few different articles that say that testing in the afternoon and evening is better for ovulation. You want to use first morning urine to test for pregnancy. But being that I really wanted to pinpoint my LH surge, being that I'm a year postpartum, my cycle is still kind of all over the place, I thought testing almost 3 times per day would be the way to go. So I tested once in the morning, once in the afternoon, once in the evening on particular days, the days that I knew I was getting close to ovulating. So cycle day 7, I was still spotting, like I said, knew I was going to ovulate. So that day I took 2 tests, one at 8 a.m., one at 1:45. Cycle day 8, I only took 1 test because it was super light. And again, I was still spotting on cycle day 8, so I knew that there was no way that I was going to be ovulating that day. Cycle day 9, I took one at 9:15 in the morning, still really, really light. As you can see, the test line is lighter than the control line, so that is a negative ovulation test. Cycle day 9, I also tested at 2:20 p.m., another really light line. The reason you want to test multiple times a day is because you don't know exactly when you're going to have that LH surge. You don't know when you're going to have that surge in hormones, so you want to catch it as soon as possible. CD, cycle day 10, 3 o'clock, really light. Again, I knew that was pretty early for me to ovulate, so I only took 1 test. Only took 1 test on cycle day 11 at 4 p.m. Really light test. Cycle day 12, 1 and 8:30. I took tests, really light. Day 13, this was when I started trying to become a little bit more aware of taking tests multiple times a day, because I knew we were coming up to when I would normally ovulate in a normal cycle. So cycle day 13, 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. took tests. They were both negative. Cycle day 14 was where I started, ovulation tests can be so tricky, right? Because you could look at that and think, well, that line is as dark as the control line, and so I must be ovulating. But When you actually see a positive ovulation test, like right down here, then there's an obvious difference, right? This line is definitely darker than this line. This line is just as dark as this line. Cycle day 14 at 6:45 a.m. I still knew that test line was not quite as dark as the control line. Cycle day 14 at 11 a.m. a little bit darker. And then cycle day 14 at 3:35 p.m. This is where I'm a little iffy, because this line right here, let's see if it'll focus. This line here definitely looks as dark as this line, and it especially did right when I took the test. So I marked down that was when I had my LH surge, 3:35 p.m. cycle day 14. Now these tests can't tell you high LH versus peak LH, which you may want a test that can give you that distinguishing factor, and a lot of digital tests will. Cycle day 15 at 7:30 a.m. I got this test here. So debatable, right? Like either this could be considered my positive, or this can be considered my positive. In either case, if I were trying for a baby, I would want to baby dance with my partner on this day and this day, just to be safe, right? And then in the 2-3 days following this positive LH test. Yeah, cycle day 15, 7:30 a.m. and 2:45 p.m. got two really, really dark tests. And then cycle day 16, 6:30 in the morning and 4 o'clock, nearly 4 o'clock p.m. I got two really sort of fainter tests. So I stopped testing after cycle day 16 because I knew that, like, okay, I got my positive ovulation test in this general area here, which means that I am experiencing an LH surge, which means I'm going to ovulate in the next 24 to 48 hours, and like the rest of my cycle will be as such. I will say that I have not gotten my period yet. I'm on cycle day 22. Last cycle, I got my period on cycle day 22. I don't feel that in my body right now, but I should expect my period on like cycle day 26 or 27. Stop testing for ovulation after you've received a very positive or peak ovulation test, if you're just trying to figure out when you're ovulating during your cycle. From what I've read, you can't ovulate twice in one cycle. So it's not as if you're going to test for ovulation on this day and then miss out on another ovulating day if you stop testing, if that makes sense. So really it's the days leading up to ovulation that you want to be testing and really watching those lines for. Because let's say if I got a really faint line up here on day 12, and then stop testing and then randomly test it again on day 16, I would totally miss the actual LH surge on cycle day 15, which would be disappointing, obviously, if we were trying for a baby. Does that make sense? I know ovulation tests can be really confusing. The stick tests are really great if you are testing a lot during your cycle, and I will say that after having been pregnant, my ovulation symptoms are really, really intense. So I paired the stick test with my intense ovulation symptoms and kind of can then pinpoint the window of time where I'm probably going to ovulate. If you don't have really intense ovulation symptoms, or you're really not sure, then I would say use the stick test just to get a general idea over anywhere from 30 to 40 days, depending on what your cycle length is, to get a general idea of when you might be ovulating. And then if you want to really double down on that and use digital tests to help confirm that, then that could be a really great way to use those digital tests, because again, they're just expensive. So using the expensive tests multiple times a day for weeks on end could definitely get pricey. So if you have any specific questions regarding ovulation or pinpointing your fertile window, then definitely leave it down in the comments below and I'll help where I can. And that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.